Hello, how we doing today? I pray everybody's doing all right. It's very beautiful to be around everybody and we're communicating. I've been doing videos back to back for the very purpose is just to pretty much give out useful information to those who desire to receive it. I know that some of my subjects are definitely pinpointed for the purpose of us taking it from this point and utilizing it for better understanding. I'm not expecting anyone to just take what I say and just take it as face value and never go and research or do anything to gain more understanding to what is being discussed. Each of us deal with things differently. And as you read on this title, I don't trust you. How many times have someone made that statement? If they don't say it out loud to you, but there are pinpoints and activity that shows that they have an issue with the trust department. And it could be a lot of reasons why people don't trust very easy, from trauma and many other areas of people's lives that have led them to feel like it's difficult to put their trust in anyone. They even try to use the cliche of the word, put not your trust in man, but just put your trust in Yah. Yet and still you see that the Messiah was walking with 12 men and only one betrayed him, but he trusted the ones that he trusted. But even though he trusted the Father the most, he still built a relationship of trust with those men. So I don't think it's really about what the Bible's saying that's the problem. I think that because of personal experiences that we go through, we already tend to feel it's easier to build a wall of defense rather than to deal with the truth that we just don't trust. It could take one person to do something for you to feel that way. It could take parents. It could take being at the job. It can take being in school. It could be a lot of things and reasons why you want to say you don't trust someone. And then when something of value take place and you want to build relationships, that wall still stands. So now it's so difficult just to have an appropriate conversation with anybody because you already got your wall defense up and you don't want to show your vulnerability, and you go on that alone to be your guarding post on what you say and don't say. Well, I keep people close to my enemies and all that. But the thing is, sometimes you don't even know who your enemy is because if you got them close, it's pretty much your own self, because we are our enemy to ourselves more than any other person being an enemy to us. We are an enemy to ourselves. We can have so much in the trust department issue that it causes us to lose out on so many activities with friendship or even relationships or any type of fellowship because of that arena of non-trust. Some people, and I like to talk with these things with leaders. Leaders been hurt for so long, they don't even trust the parishioners in their ministry. They don't even trust the people that's on their leadership team. And not even just ministry-wise, just job-wise and other things. So they got this big issue because of what other people did. They use that as a cliche for everybody else that comes into their life. All of us do that. So it's not even about one person or two person or three person. It's about all of us. And we're quick to do that, though. Sometimes you let your guard down a little bit. You think you know somebody and y'all begin to build, and then you find out that they violated that trust and somewhere or another, now you feel some type of way, and then you rather deal with people that you felt you trusted than to deal with new people, although you've been hurt by the ones you trusted before. So, you don't want to build friendship, you don't want to do anything because of the violation department of what people do. Trust me. There we go again. There's a lot of reasons why people don't trust. So today's lesson is about how to get past that barrier that may be the reason why you're not moving forward in your life. There will be people that even the Most High himself will bring into your life to be a benefit for you, but because of the scars, emotional, physical, trauma, and any other way, you push them away. And you never really see the value of who they are because of your fears of what they may or may not do, or what you project they may or may not do, that causes you to lose out on the blessing for that particular moment that the Most High has. And then he got to wait for a little while for you to build your confidence up again, and then you go back and talk to somebody else. And as long as you keep doing that, there will be many obstacles in you receiving any good thing that you want. Now, a lot of people want to go around saying they trust the Messiah. I trust them. I trust the Father in heaven. You don't see the Father in heaven. Nor none of us in this age have ever seen the Messiah. So there were a lot of people that you read in the Bible that have done a lot of negative things, and yet you still see that they were in the Bible. So there's probably a whole lot of other people in the Bible or any other place that have done a lot of stuff, and they still was planted somewhere that you reading about them. Does that mean that their life was filled with doing everything right? I doubt that seriously. Because if there are any human inside of them, they have made a lot of mistakes just like you and I. So we have to get off of that mindset, well, I just trust y'all and that's it. I trust the Father. And then when he brings people in your life, you don't even trust that the people that he brings is the one that you're supposed to have in your life. So that means you're not even trusting the Father to lead and direct you to people because you keep throwing them away. So there's a lot of issues with trust that's causing people never to get past the main idea of becoming more efficient in the ministry that Yah has given them. So we need to really think about that. Really think about that today. Hallelujah. Well, Father Yah, we just thank you that you allowing us to be in your presence today. Most Holy One, I ask you to give us true revelation on how it is to be in a position to trust, even in such a violated mindset that we see around us every day. Yah, I ask you to give us understanding on how to build true trust with our brothers and our sisters, and allowing you to guide and lead us to the people that sometime will probably screw up in our life, but that doesn't mean that we can't trust them. Yah, give us understanding on how to receive things without always cautiously believing everything is negative. Everybody has a motive. Everybody wants to hurt us. And Yah, just give us understanding on how to have what we call in our lives common sense, as well as what you see as discernment. Hallelujah. Let's talk about some of these things we call emotional scars that has really driven us to a place of not having trust. Some of these issues are called wounds that comes into emotional scars, but they start off in some fashion or another as something that took place that built this not trusting department. So once again, I'm looking at a website that I think I look at a little bit more. It's verywellmind.com. I cannot tell you everything in it is as accurate. I just like to read a little more in it. Sometime some of these things may be or may not be beneficial, but I still think it's something to look into. It's called verywellmind.com. So let's say it says thinking, I don't trust anyone, strongly suggests that trust issues may be present. Sometimes people use this phrase to indicate a lack of trust for people they don't know well. In other cases, the use of this phrase could suggest a more serious difficulty in trusting anyone at all. Now let's look at something in a glance. Now, trusting others requires vulnerability on our part, which some struggle with. Negative past experiences can lead to trouble with trust, which can harm our relationships or our friendships and romantic relationships. It can have an impact on issues. There are steps we can take, however, to start learning to trust. Now, let's talk about that. It says a mental health professional can also be of help by teaching us, some portion of that in the form of healthy relationships. So what it means to not trust anyone. When we trust someone, it means that we believe they are dependable, reliable, and honest. A certain amount of trust is necessary for relationships, but trusting other people is not always easy, and the closer the relationship is, the harder it can be because it requires that we reveal ourselves to the other person. This can be a big ask, and not everyone is prepared or willing to accept the risk of making themselves vulnerable. They may struggle with believing that others will live up to their expectations or act with good intentions, thus reducing their desires to share their true selves. In some cases, a lack of trust is less about the other person and more about people in general. Generalized trust involves our ability to trust other members of society, so a lack of generalized trust involves not being able to trust anyone at all. Now, this is very important, because if you try to live out your life that way, when do you ever have friends? When do you ever go and do things with your life where that puff jacket is sitting on you and it's always, that person, I think they got a real bad motive. I really believe that there's something going on. I don't trust what they say to me. No, that definitely can't be true. And we will go through these things in our heart, and we will build up our own expectation on what someone should or should not do in order to receive the high score in our trust department. So if they did these things, that means that they are doing so well, that means that they can be trusted. If they doing these things, they are doing so bad that they definitely cannot be trusted. Where do we get our scorebook from? How do we come up with our own conclusion on people and how they're supposed to respond and how we supposed to receive that response based on our own expectation? Folks, this is what's really destroying your relationships or mine in a way that can cause us to never build true relationships. Also, it helps us to really see that we are the one can be at fault. What has happened in our past should not be a development of our present condition, even though it paints a picture of it, even causes us to have these scars and sometimes reopen wounds to produce extra scars. does not mean that everybody we deal with is the producer of those issues. So how do we deal with those things without causing ourselves to keep violating the trust department? Because we breaking in our rules too. So let's look at some of the signs of lack of trust. Someone with a lack of trust will generally question people's intentions regularly, frequently assume the worst about others, assume that others will let them down, distance themselves from others to avoid disappointments, have a hard time asking other people for help. Recognizing these qualities in ourselves suggests that we may struggle with trust. So there's a lot of things that has developed these problems, and I mean it can go from research of early childhood experiences, being bullied or rejected, negative relationship experiences, trauma or PTSD. We can just have an offset of our own personality. Now let's think about those areas that we just discussed. All of us have had some type of early childhood experiences that were negative. I have even heard somebody say that they were dropped as a child. So, like with anything that you can think of that would cause someone as a child to feel uncomfortable in the trust department, just label it there. Now, bullying or rejection. Bully can come from being an adult being bullied as well as being a child being bullied. You could have been rejected with poor relationships. You could have been rejected as a teen. You could have been rejected from people in your workplace. You could have been rejected in many aspects as well as being bullied. Sometimes you can have negative relationship experiences. Maybe you picked the wrong person to be with. Maybe the person you with is not so much how you want your relationship or your expectation of a relationship to be. Maybe somebody cheated on you. Maybe you had a traumatic experience with the person and you can't seem to shake it off. Trauma could have been a lot of different trauma. Trauma goes a long way, so we can't even name many areas of trauma. PTSD, which means post-traumatic stress disorder, still in the traumatic part of trauma, but probably a stronger notation of it. Sometimes we just have a personality issue. Sometimes people are just not in a position to feel comfortable around anybody, period. It could be a mental health issue. It can be low self-esteem issue. It could be just a general concept of what your personality, your character is. Might not just like people, period. Maybe you just feel like everybody's out to hurt you. It could be many reasons why you would have an area of lack of trust. But when it becomes so overwhelming, that's when you need to start thinking about talking to someone in the therapeutic mindset to kind of help you get through some of those areas and not just try to brush them off. Some areas you can go to peer support programs. You can talk to people in self-help peer support programs, people that probably have went through some of the same areas and have recovered from it. Maybe to hear some of those stories, go to some of the sites that have video sharing aspects like YouTube. Begin to take and listen to some of the things that people have experienced and how they recovered from it. Those are areas that you can do for yourself to maybe get past some of those areas of fear where trust comes in. But to do nothing can be a very hard place, and you will still be in the department of not trusting. So let's look at some of the other parts of it. Now let's look at the effect of not trusting anyone. When trust is broken, it often becomes harder to put our faith in people. In the future, however, trust issues could hurt us in the long run because they prevent us from connecting with others or receiving support when we need it. Not being able to trust can also negatively impact how other people respond to us. Now it says research have shown that other people are more likely to respond with greater negativity when they know that we don't trust them. In one study, people who knew that others didn't trust them felt more negative emotion, had lower opinions of those who didn't trust them, and were less likely to behave in altruistic ways towards those who couldn't trust them. So you are building now a whole community of non-trust people because of your lack of trust. People that you interacting with that could have been a benefit to the trust department, you took them out of the equation, and now they start to feel impacted where it comes to someone that may perhaps just want somebody to believe in them, to trust what they say, to feel good that someone actually care about what they're saying. But if you don't trust them, you're going to pretty much toss them aside and not really believe nothing that they say. Could you imagine that the same attitude that happened to you, you're producing that attitude in other people? So we have a lot to think about when we're talking about trusting or not trusting. So how can we start thinking about trusting people again? It says, even if we find it hard to trust people, some strategies may help us learn how to form better relationships and become more trusting in different situations, because it takes time. Now let's start small. That's one of the ones that they stated in the verywellmind.com. Look for small ways to trust people. Trust is always a matter of degree. We might trust some people with some things, but not with others. A good way to become more trusting is to push ourselves to trust other people in small doses until we can trust something more significant. Let's give an example. I'll give an example. Let's say that you giving somebody $5 to go to the store for you. That's something that you might not do because you was in a situation where somebody stole money from you. Now I'm using just examples that is on the top of my head, but I think they're very good analogies to think about. So let's just say somebody stole money from you, and now you want to see if you can start, trusting other people with something that is of treasure to you or something that's important to you, because money is a treasure if you need it. So you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to give so-and-so $5 to go to the store for me. Now this is just one individual. Everybody, you got more than one person, but this one is just one individual. So you say, I'm going to give them the $5 and I'm going to see will they bring back the items and bring back my change, because I know how much I'm supposed to get back. So they bring back the item and they bring back the change. So that's now at least one portion of trust that you see that they're reliable into doing. So now you're still going to have issues with the trust. So you do it again, this time with a little bit more money, just to try to see the response. Now, don't mean that you always got to pick the same person, but what it means that at least you are attempting to start taking a better approach in the trust of something that was violated with you, which is someone stealing money from you. So let's look at something else. And it says that staying positive, try to be optimistic about others. Start with the belief that there are good people out there. Approaching social situations with an open mind and optimistic mindset may help reduce the distrust of people in general. Let's use an example. You go to the store and usually you don't talk to nobody. You feel like everybody might be there to harm you in some way, or you might have an experience of something that was not favorable for you. I don't want to get into what those experiences are. I'm sure you would know. So, and the disappointment thing is that if you say something to somebody and they may jump off and say something to you that made you feel uncomfortable. So now you feel very distrustful when it comes to communicating something or something that you feel inside, because you're not sure what the approach may be. So say something to somebody. Be optimistic to believe that the person you're talking to is not going to snap at you or reject what you say or cause you to feel uncomfortable because they're disappointed or any other thing. So say something small. Hey, how are you doing? Some people will say, well, I've heard, I said good morning, or I said grand rising, and somebody said, well, what's good about it? That could make somebody feel uncomfortable, and that's something that you have to expect that could happen. But now you're learning to trust that not everybody will come at you with a negative response. So now you're taking little small steps. You're thinking clearly that maybe perhaps somebody you're talking to is not going to come off on you in a wrong way, and you're taking a chance. It's hard to do, but that's something that you have to approach if you have a desire to rebuild the trust department that was once taken away. Now, another one is to just trust carefully. Every relationship doesn't mean that you disclose every little thing about you. You don't get on the fan that's just talking about everybody and everything and every situation that you've been through just because they seem friendly or just because they seem to listen. Take the time talking to someone and give a little bit of word at a time. Begin to build that trust level, and then when you feel just a little bit like you can give a little bit more information, don't be so quick to give the tough stuff. Some people don't need to know every little thing about you so you can see if they're trustworthy or not. Some people don't need to know A, B, C, and D for you to feel like they're trustworthy. Some things need to be in the background and never come to the foreground because that's not none of their business. So if you give too much and then they take that too much away and now you feel like you can't trust anymore, it's because you did not use wisdom in how you give that information. So you can kind of not being good in how you approach something to learn how to be efficient in the trust department. So carefully think about what you would say, how you would say it, the way you want to say it, so that you will be able to get a lot of good things out of it and not necessarily cause more harm by producing more problems for yourself. Let's look at things to trust easily wind up in disappointment. Let's start by learning to trust people to the degree that the situation calls for. In many cases, this might involve a more superficial trust based on a mutual agreement upon a set of expectations. It's almost similar to going to a mechanic and saying, hey, I want you to fix my car, and they actually fix it. Or you go to some place and you notice that you dropped something and somebody bring it back to you without taking it. These are things that happen. That was a natural thing, but it happened. It starts to help you to build dependability and honesty and actually give you an insight to have a worthiness of someone you can trust. Because one thing you don't want to do is keep saying, I trust Yah only, and he's the one, and that's all I trust. He didn't make us that way. If you read the Bible, he says that, confess thy faults one to another. If you don't trust someone, you're not going to talk about anything. So why would those words come from one of the people that was inspired to write it? if it was for you to just trust the Father in heaven and that's it. You got to learn to build relationship and wisdom. You got to learn to trust people without always discounting everybody that you talk to. You got to learn to believe that there are good people that don't have bad intentions every communication you have. You have to do that. And it takes the greatest initiative, you, to do it. If you choose not to embrace it and you choose to take your time in doing it, that's great. But it's up to you in the end. And if somebody violates your trust again and they hurt you, don't swallow up in it. Build resilience and begin to trust someone. Hallelujah. I pray this was insightful and it helps you to see that you can trust someone at some point. Hallelujah.